Hi, Group 2. I've started the webinar for you guys, so you should be able to hear me and see me. If you'll just let me know on the today's meet that you are with us. And we'll get started. Hope you guys are having a good night. Hope it stopped raining there. It finally stopped raining here. I think I see that Cassie had joined us and Bridget. Awesome. I'm going to give it just a couple more seconds here to show me some more viewers. Helen's here. You won't have to look at my face for too long, so that'll be nice. Okay, so make sure if you're on here and you haven't joined the Today's Meet, make sure you join the Today's Meet. I'm going to share my screen with you now. Looking to see if anyone else joined. It only says I have one viewer, so we'll give you a couple more seconds. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. It's going to look crazy for a minute, and then I'll switch it over. Okay. All right, Vicky's here. So you should be seeing the screen that says multiple representations. It'll be the Google Slides show that I'm going to show you tonight. I can't see or hear anything. Doug, did you push play to join, Doug? Make sure you're on the link for 3.6. I guess if you can't hear me, it does no good for me to talk to you like with my voice. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and go back to the video. Oh, Doug got it. Vicky, the video has begun. It is live, so you should be able to see me and hear me. Vicky, let us know if you got it to work. Cassie, I can't either. Okay. I'm not sure exactly how it looks on your end, but you actually have to click on the video so that you can see me. I know I'm doing it right this time because it just worked for the other group. So, oh, Vicky, you might need to refresh your screen. Oh, Judy's here. Unavailable in restricted mode. I have no idea what that means, Vicky. I'm very sorry. Oh, Cassandra's here. I'm not sure if I don't see that Katrina is here. Oh, refreshing your video work, Tammy. Oh, Bridget's here. Yep. Why don't Vicky try going back and restarting on the video? How do I unrestrict mode? I'm thinking that might be on your end because I haven't restricted anything. I would just try to go out and come back in. All right, Cassie's good. Vicki, let us know if restarting helps that. While we're waiting on Vicki to refresh that, those of you that have joined us, can you let us know anything that you've tried in your classroom, maybe a number sense routine, something else from our time together that you tried? Type that into the today's meet while we're waiting on Vicki to restart. Oh, Heather's here. Vicki, it says that you're watching on my screen, so. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share and get started. Hopefully you'll be able to join us, Vicki. The screen's gonna look crazy just for a minute. Okay, so again, please put any questions in the today's meet. Oh, a number cross puzzle, awesome. Oh, the Amazing Race, I like that one, awesome. Oh, Bridget, how did it go doing the disc? Oh, you're gonna see a video today of 3rd grade using disc. Oh, Doug, I'm glad you brought up pattern blocks with fractions. We're going to talk specifically about fractions today with you guys in the upper grades. I think it's a really important place where we stop using multiple representations, and it really affects our students' understanding of fractions. So we're going to focus on fractions today with you guys. Yep, and there's also paper disc, and I think you can even find, like, if you guys have a smart board or whatever kind that you use there with like smart notebooks. I'm blanking on the one you can find already completed lessons, but people have already made those where they're multiplied, and you can just use them digitally. It's a great way. All right, so I had you guys read Star Students Make Connections, talking about multiple representations, and because really a big shift in our thinking for students is away from what is the right and wrong answer, the procedural right and wrong answer, and moving towards, can I think flexibly about numbers? Can I give you one way to solve it? Can I give you another way to solve it? The lower grade teachers shared confusion, that sometimes the students get confused, and I would say that's not because they're dealing with multiple representations. I would say that that's on us, that we're either rushing them to understand multiple representations too quickly, or we aren't being explicit enough about those connections and how we're teaching them. Yay, Vicki, I'm glad you're here. Cassie lost sound. I don't think I've changed anything, so I wonder if it's a connection on your end. I'm hooked into no wireless. I'm actually hooked into the wall, so it should work for you guys on my end. If we're thinking about why are we teaching them to think about multiple representations? We are making sure that they have the ability to move flexibly. It's just a key part of mathematical understanding. It's important that they can do it different ways, that they understand math different ways, because just like as a teacher, I don't really understand something unless I can really explain it, and that's part of the multiple representation. But we have to give opportunities for students to see them and to make meaningful connections and representations. And again, like today, I'm going to show you this specifically with fractions, but this would be an entire unit of fractions, and I would do each one multiple times rather. I'm going to show it to you all in an hour, but we've got to think about pacing for our students. one thing we're going to talk about towards the end is our math conversations, but I'm going to say this now because I think we do this especially in the older grades, is we say something, we ask a question, and then we answer for our students, and we walk away thinking that our lesson was very clear because it feels like they've affirmed that we answered, that they understood what we were doing. But a lot of ways we're asking yes or no or basic questions, or we're also answering for them. And I'm going to talk more about that, but we have to be really active listeners, which is a shift for us as teachers. We have to make it a shift from being the person in the front of the room controlling all that we do, and shift to being more of a listener and responding to the needs of our students. And so that might mean slowing down or giving more opportunities with certain representations. And that's like specifically with the fractions, is that we see in research that we traditionally only show one type of representation, and we have to help them to see fractions in multiple ways to make sure that they really understand fractions. Okay, getting started. So again, mathematical representations, those could be words, pictures, drawings, diagrams, graphical displays, symbolic expressions. It could be many things, but we want to be sure that we're giving them multiple experiences. We have to help students understand how and when to make connections between strategies and representations to support their mathematical thinking. I know we are in the older grades here, but you want to think about when a child, maybe your own child, learned to read, they didn't just teach them whole words or whole sentences, but they really broke down the chunks. They taught the blends. Well, first they just taught the beginning letter sounds, and then they moved on to teaching ending sounds, and then blends and digraphs and all the different pieces that go together. And then we slowly show them how to put those together to form words and then sentences and then to be able to read. So if you think about that with math, with how we're going to teach a multiple representation, like I said, we're not going to give it all to them on one day. We're going to help them to see the different pieces. We're going to do it at the pace they need. So that's one thing thinking about reading. We teach reading based on reading level, same kind of thing with the math. We can't assume they'll make the connection. We have to show them and make the connections for them. So if I haven't explicitly done it for them, I can't expect them to have it on their own. But ultimately, the point of the multiple representations is that they are able to translate or move between one representation to another. And that's a really, really complex skill. It takes time. It takes a deep understanding of the representation. And it takes a lot of modeling and a lot of experience on my part and a lot of experience on their part. One thing I think is important to point out is that once we kind of get like, oh, this really is the way math should be taught, we get a little bit excited about it and we try to move too quickly, and we have to make sure that we're not moving too quickly, that we're really giving them time with it, especially as you guys start to roll this in next year, that you're going to have realistic expectations of older students who are kind of learning kind of to do it, old dog, new trick kind of thing. But their ability to translate between one type of representation to another, or between one mathematical concept to another, is really important. We're teaching them that math isn't arbitrary. They have to learn to translate so that we can deepen their mathematical understanding. It's going to take longer to teach than the procedural algorithm and memorizing steps. And also, because the student comes to us understanding the procedural algorithm doesn't mean I can take for granted and assume that they have the conceptual understanding. And that, again, is on me as the teacher to make sure that I'm doing the investigation that's necessary to know what do they understand about the concept and what are the next steps that I can take them on to learn. So again, we have to really face the reality of where they are and meet them there. And that is a really important part of why we have math talks and math conversations with our students. And that's what we'll end tonight talking about, is how those should look in our classroom. Okay. I'm going to show you two model drawing. This is a first grade model drawing. I'm going to skip a lot of the kindergarten, first, second grade things that I showed them tonight. I would encourage you to go back later and at least watch the video. I'll share the link to this presentation with you. I have links in there to other things for you, but I want to show you how in a first grade classroom, they're looking at multiple representation. So this was their model drawing problem. And after they completely solved it, and this was an independent day, so this is towards the end of the week, so they've been doing these kind of problems a while, and this student did this work all on his own, and you'll notice several different representations. You see the bars he drew, you see a number sentence that he drew, and you see a number bond that he drew. So the teacher just simply said, how did you solve the problem? And she just took responses from the students. So one student said, well, I added 10 plus 5, because that's a friendly number. I know that's 15. And then I took away 1 because I actually had 9 plus 5. Another student said, I'm going to make in my head, I made the 9 a 10. So then I was left with 4. And 10 plus 4 is 14. Another student said, I counted the boxes, which is perfectly fine. Another student said, I hopped on a number line, which a number line is a really important thing that we don't use enough of, especially in the older grades, and I'm going to talk about that with fractions. But she said, I started on 9 on the number line and hopped up 5. So then one student said, and this is a part of us explicitly helping students to know when a strategy is a good strategy and when it maybe isn't the best strategy. So one student said, well, I use a doubles fact. And so the teacher just said, the teacher didn't say, no, that's wrong, but the teacher said, what do they know about 5 and 9, and how far are they? Are they close on the number line, or are they far away on the number line? And the student said, oh, well, they're really far away. So she said, would then we want to use a doubles fact if they're far away? And a doubles fact would be like if I have 5 and 6, and I know 5 and 5 is 10 plus 1 more is 6. And so the student said, oh no, they're far away, so I wouldn't want to do that. So again, she explicitly helped them to see that without telling them their thinking was wrong, because sometimes double facts are a good way to go, but she allowed them all to share their thinking so that all the students are having an experience with different ways of thinking. I'm going to show you a quick video. This is, I just went into a classroom and they were doing model drawing with multiplication. And you're going to see the student is talking about, is drawing her number bond for the multiplication. And you're going to see how the teacher just quickly puts a couple different representations in front of her students, because she knows she's a third grade teacher. So she knows some of the students have their 3s and their 6 memorized. Some of the students are still doing repeated addition and don't have them memorized, and they need to see the connection between the two. So here's a quick, and again, focus on not the model drawing here. I think that's something we would work on in the spring, but in person, but specifically how she's showing multiple representations. Teach while you write on the board.
So your whole, your total is at the top, and then your parts are at the bottom, your factors. So if we wanted to show it another way, we could also draw it like this. Oh, so that's perfect. We could also have 18. And then how many 3s do we have, everybody?
We have 6.
We have 6 of them. And if you draw all 6, then it's like you're adding them together. So you can put pluses in between. Isn't that cool? All right, thank you so much. We are going to now move on.
Okay, so again, because she knew some students in her classroom were still doing repeated addition, she didn't want them to be confused by this number bond here. Even though this student clearly is already, on to 3 times 6 is 18. And even seeing that the inverse is the division problem, but she wanted to show that multiple representation of the 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 6 times. Okay. All right, we're going to move ahead here past some of this K2 stuff. Okay. So I want to look specifically today at multiple representations with fractions. Let me go ahead in my slides. sorry, first we're going to start with the division. I wanted to show you a group of students. I wish I knew how to use my smartboard. Oh, Bridget, I can't help you with that today, but that is a definite thing that to work on and to just express that you need more support there, because there's a lot of ways to use it, especially for math, to save you time and things. But okay, before we move into the fractions, I want to show you an example of these students doing long division with their place value charts and with their disc. Also drawing disc, and then them showing it in the classroom. In the K2 stuff, I have a link to a bunch of math resources. I will share this entire presentation with you, and the links will be live. I'll share it through Google. But the thing I love about this is there's a lot of great resources here. Maybe you have a third grader who is still really struggling with place value, or you need a place value mat. Here's place value mats, hundreds, tens, and ones. So a lot of great numeral cards. You know, how many times have I typed those out for myself in larger numbers? So anyway, that resource is clicked in there. I also have a resource to hundreds chart here, edible hundreds chart, that are really great for students if you have students that are struggling with understanding number relationships. So quickly want to show you this. Okay, so back to this. So Lisa's class is learning long division. Now, of course, they're going to learn long division and the algorithm. They absolutely are going to, but that is a procedural understanding. It explains nothing about how numbers work other than they learn to do divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. So the place value focus is really helping them to see what is dividing, that it's making equal groups and really understanding how to do that. Using the disc, using the number bonds, and using repeated subtraction. So she's also building that foundation that goes way beyond just the procedural understanding. We won't watch the whole 17 minutes, we'll just get started on it. Uh-oh, it's not wanting to work.
I am showing you guys how we can do division with foam pieces, because these represent numbers, don't they? Yes. So what I would like for you guys to do right now, on the board, at the top of the board, we have an equation. And it says 400 divided by 2. So I need you and your buddy to grab just 400s. I just want you to grab 400s. If you don't have 100, raise your hand and I can bring you some. I need more. 400. Yeah. You could make hundreds out of what? Tens if you want. Or you can draw them with your marker if you don't know what you need. So go ahead and you could just draw 400s on your board. They're the orange pieces. You're going to put them on your board. Yeah. So if you have the orange pieces, you can just use those. You don't have to draw them if you don't. All right. When you have put your 400s on your board, give me a thumbs up. Okay, good work. Class. Yeah. I would like you and your buddy to whisper level 1 spy talk. How in the world could you divide these 400s into 2 equal groups? How could you show that on your board? How could you show on your blue board how to divide 400s into 2 equal groups? Discuss that with your partner.
So 4 divided by 2 groups.
Who would like to raise their hand and share what they did on their board? Who can share what they did? Julie, what'd your group do?
We split the 200s equally into two groups.
Wow, okay, so how did you do that though?
So we had 400, and so the 400 you can like split it up into 200 and 200.
So you're saying that you had 400 foam pieces in the 100 spot, and then you just split them up into two equal groups. So you could even kind of do something like this, couldn't you? Just draw a line across your board with a marker, and you have 200s in one group and 200s in the other group. It's kind of like you get 2 of them and your buddy gets 2 of them. So if my equation is 400 divided by 2, what did each group get, class? 200. There were 200 in each group. Okay, that was an easy one to start. We're going to do one that's a little bit harder. Are you guys ready to bump it up to that?
Yes.
All right. This time, I want you to have 400. Let's try 440 divided by 2. So you're going to start out by having 440, and you want to break those up into 2 equal groups.
Okay, I'm going to stop there. Like I said, when I share this presentation with you, I would encourage you to go back and watch the whole video. I recorded the entire time that she did with the disc, so like it's almost 18 minutes long. So of course she's starting easy, and then she's moving. Even 440 is going to be easy to divide, and then she's going to move into a number that doesn't divide equally and has a remainder, and has them talk about that. So you're seeing how they are using the place value chart to make sure they have their disc in the right place value, but they're also then using those discs, and they're also talking about making equal groups and representations. So definitely go back and watch that. And I even have another piece of the video. Oh, that's actually the same video. Okay. So do you have any thoughts about what you might do differently, what you saw or didn't see in the lesson? What did they need to know before the lesson? Type those into the today's meet, and I'll address those. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move forward with fractions so we don't run out of time. But fractions really, and the reason I chose to start here with this with the older grades, is fractions really is the first experience students have beyond addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So, and fractions really are a building block for their upcoming math, for working with decimals, for working with percentages, and next time we talk, I want to focus on decimals too, because I think that's another big place that we have to offer our students more experiences with multiple representations. So here's some more research on that. An understanding of unit fractions, and especially 1/2, 1/3, and 1/4, is crucially important for elementary school children's development of number sense. So again, I think, if you think about the students, how much time they spend in their early grades on developing their whole number sense, and how quickly we can move sometimes with fractions. I think it's a mistake that we make to rush them through really understanding fractions. If they have difficulty with fractions, it can be an obstacle to further progress in math. And the research has shown that students have an over-reliance on area-related contexts, like drawing your pizza, cut your pizza and share it with 8 friends or whatever, and that students aren't able to transfer that knowledge to related real-life situations. And so if they can't transfer it, then they don't really have a deep understanding of it. National tests show that nearly half of 8th graders aren't able to put fractions in order. So if they can't put them in order, then they don't really get how they work, and they need more exposure to them. Student success in later elementary grades is really determined by a strong understanding of fraction equivalence and becoming flexible with decomposing and composing fractions. Nobody has any thoughts on the today's meet? All right. Experiencing different representations of the same concept can help students abstract structural similarities and develop conceptual understandings of fractions. So again, helping them to be flexible and purposeful, and this takes time. Today I'm going to give you specific ways to show students multiple representations with fractions. I think the struggle that sometimes, especially as teachers of students in older grades, is that we have in our head that they don't need manipulatives. One of the second grade teachers even said that she had a parent say that it was her student was being lazy if they were using a manipulative, in second grade. So that's definitely a part of educating the parents that we have to change, because again, when I'm going from whole numbers to parts of numbers with fractions, it's a whole different shift in thinking. And so they are going to need lots of hands-on manipulatives. I think also it takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of forethought, and it causes a lot of stuff and mess in our classroom. And by that, I mean, just like that was not a neat operation there, even using those discs to do division. It took time to get them passed out and used, but it's a really important part of the process. So it's got to be more than pencil paper. And it can't even just be students drawing pictures of fractions, because as I was just saying, only drawing pictures of like pizzas and things and dividing them up and sharing with our friends is not enough to help our students really understand fractions. Okay, so I'm going to give you some different types of ways to show fractions and have students have experience with fractions. So the first one is going to be 3 ways to show linear examples and models for students. I think I said this earlier, I can't remember what I said to the younger grades, but number lines are really, really, really important. So one way you could do that is with a paper number line. So this picture here in the top right is an example of that. If you give your students, and this would be in the beginning when I'm working with just 0 to 1, but giving them 3 different colors of strips of papers, all the same length, having them fold 1 into half, 1 into thirds, 1 in fourths, and then having conversations that they can see, oh, well, 2 sections of the purple is 2/3 because I broke into 3 pieces and those are 2/3. I know that seems simple, but the actual act of them folding and seeing it, that the whole is the same size, and that's also going to help with them ordering fractions. So when I fold it only in half, or when I fold it in 3 pieces, my pieces are getting smaller, even though my denominator is getting bigger. That's really important for them to actually see that in different ways besides cutting their pizza in smaller pieces. I'm going to keep talking about pizza because clearly I haven't had dinner yet. Okay, folding a piece of rope. This is very similar to the paper, but the cool thing I like about this is it's going to be on one piece of rope. So if I have 1 yard of rope, I'm going to also draw 1 yard length on my board, and they're going to fold it in half and make 1 color mark on the rope. Fold it in thirds, which is tricky all in itself. Maybe you would start with halves, fourths, and eighths, and then have another rope that is thirds and sixths. So I know that helping them see those relationships and starting with thirds is maybe not always the best thing, with just them being able to fold it and even see that equally. And we're going to talk at the end about math talk and using math talk. But this is an important place where you would have lots of math talk around what are they seeing, what do they notice, what do they notice about the relationships of the fractions. A human number line. I think having a number line in your classroom during fractions, decimals, and upper grade math is really, really important. I recommend even just having kind of like a rope or a clothesline that you have even just clothespins that you have the actual numbers hanging from that, so it's really easy for you to manipulate it and change it. But even just having students come up and hold the numbers, if you had 13 students up front holding 0 to 1, 0 on the left and 1 on the right, so you have the other students in the middle, the other 11 students, and then making the fractions in between. So where would a half be in there, and having the student have the half on their paper and go and stand there. Well, if that's where the half is, where is 2/4? They're going to see the equivalence there. Where is 1/4? Where is 3/4? And continuing to add your fractions in there and helping them to really see and having conversation around what's happening when you do that. Okay. So here's an example of a little activity that I would have my students do after I taught those three. And of course, I would not teach all three of those linear examples in one day. This is a lot of information and a lot of experience with them and giving them a lot of time with it. But this would be a post activity that would help me to see, do they really understand how to use the number line and where fractions fall on there? So I would have them show where is 1/2, where is 1/3, where is 1/4, where would 2/3 be? I think a really important part of fractions is having them talk about it in relationship to 0, 1/2, and 1. That's going to give you help. That's a really important part for them to start with. Do I even know, is it more or less than 1/2? And of course, moving beyond this, then we need to make sure that we're not just always doing fractions between 0 and 1, but we're showing them the relationship between 1 and 2, 2 and 3, how those fraction parts are the same with those wholes, and even larger numbers on my number line, between 30 and 31, and those kind of things. Helping them to really be flexible in how they see the numbers and showing the fractions in a different way. Like here, having 24 over 12. Can they show me where that is, and do they really know what that means? All right, here's an example of a way to show a perimeter model. This would be fraction baseball. So you can see they've made a square with the rope, and you're going to have a home. So the home plate would be 0 and 1, or maybe you're working on mixed numbers, so it's going to be 2 and 3. And then you're going to have a pretend pitcher throw up the pretend ball to the batter, and the teacher's going to call out, run 1/4. Then based on the whole baseball diamond, you want the student to run only 1/4. So of course we know that would be to first base. Or maybe if you're doing between 2 and 3, they're going to run to 2 and 1/4, or 2 and 2/4. And then, of course, you could put a bunch of the fractions in a hat and they're pulling them out. And sometimes they might pull a foul or pull a strike or pull an out, and that way it kind of makes it more of a game. You could do it with an equilateral triangle and do thirds. Or you could work on other shapes. You could do an octagon and work on 8s. So I don't know. I'm not sure I would be able to make that with rope, but maybe with tape. But a good way to really get them up, moving, and active, but also actually doing the fractions. Capacity. So this is one of those ones that we avoid sometimes because it's messy. It involves water, it involves prep, but again, really important. They can experience with a capacity model. So in groups, I would give them a jug of water and 4 clear glasses if I'm going to work on 4ths, or maybe I'm going to work on 3rds. I'm going to have them fill up one of the glasses, the fourth glass, full, and then I'm going to tell them to share it equally among the 3 glasses. And then we're going to talk about what fraction does each glass have. And then moving forward, I would give them these 4 problems, and first I would model, of course. I don't think I've shared that with you guys, but of course I'm going to model, I'm going to show, then I'm going to have them practice together, and then work. Okay, Helen, I don't know, I haven't touched anything. Can you hear me now, or is the sound still gone? I wonder if sometimes just the connection gets long and you need to refresh like you did before. Okay, if anyone else can't hear me, let me know, but I think it might just be one person. Uh-oh. Judy lost sound too. Oh, Bridget's still here and everything. Okay. All right, I'm going to keep talking. Hopefully if you refresh, you'll be able to hear me. Okay, so if I'm giving students these number sentences and I'm having them write math stories, buffering, okay, I don't think it's buffering here. Okay, hopefully it'll fix back. So I'm going to show you an example of a math story here. Okay. So they were told to work in groups of 3, and with the value of 1 minus 1/3 minus 1/3, make up a pouring lemonade story. So I don't know if you can read it here, so I'll read it to you. It says, once was a little man named Ronald McDonald who loved lemonade. He only had $25. He bought only 1 glass of lemonade. Then he drank 1/3 and another 1/3. Then he finally was left with 1/3. So having them utilize what they've done with the pouring of water, so them write number sentences. And then, of course, I think an important thing to notice is you might have a group that just literally getting through this, understanding of this is going to take a long, long time, and that might be the group you're working with. But you might have another group that's able to move faster, and those are the students you would say, okay, give me one of your glasses now, or let me add another glass. Now you have fourths, or take away a glass. Now you have halves, and have them do the same thing and write a different number story with that. Okay, and then of course the discrete model where like the array that they're working with fractions of a set. Okay. Uh-oh, Helen's lost everything. I'm going to keep talking because of time, and then maybe she can use the video. Okay. So working in pairs, you would have this, you have the students, and of course we can call them precious diamonds, whatever you want to call them, whatever it's, maybe it's a certain time of year and you're calling them something to do with, you know, you have 12 turkey legs, whatever for Thanksgiving. But you're going to have discussions around, okay, if I have 12 diamonds, how can I share them equally with 2 friends or with 3 friends or with 4 friends? And I would literally have them lay this out. If you have desks that they can write on with dry erase markers, or put them on top of a dry erase board and have them, okay, if I'm going to share with 2 friends, that means I need 2 equal groups, and dividing that in half and helping them make the connection with, well, 2 then is my denominator because I have 2 groups and each group gets half. That's 1/2, but that's the same as 6 12s, and helping them to see those relationships. Uh-oh, everyone's losing their connections. I don't think it's my computer. All right, I'm going to unshare my screen and make sure that this is not just, all right. Nope, it looks like I'm still recording, and shows that you guys are still watching. So I'm going to keep sharing and keep going so we don't run out of time. And if you're not on here, you'll be able to watch the video. All right, Doug's still with us. Okay. Okay. All right, I'm just letting them know that it's recording. Okay, so and helping them to see, and this is a great place to move into those really hard problems for them, 1/3 of 6, those kind of problems where they're having to really partition off and circle and understand that I have a total of 6, but I'm making 3 equal groups. This is why that understanding of division is so important, that they're developing in 3rd, 4th grade, moving that into their fraction understanding. Okay, so then how would I summarize this after I've given them, of course, over many, many days, all these different types of representations and examples of all of them? I'm going to review and have the students actually show me with a fraction all of those representations. So it might be in a table that I have the names of each of those types. You know, show me one linear way, show me one perimeter way, show me one capacity way, that you would show me the fraction 1/4, that you would model the fraction 1/4. They have to have opportunities to make connections when starting an activity and ending an activity, and helping them to then, this is an activity I would pull back up when I start talking about decimals or when I start talking about percentages, helping them make the connections between those numbers. You want to give them time to reflect on what they've seen, and this assessment piece, and maybe you do a pre-assessment at the beginning where you give them the same chart, have them fill it out. Can they show you that fraction with all those types? And then at the end, so you can see, what did they really pick up? What types of fractions of representations do I need to keep working on? Or what do they have a really good understanding of? It's really important that we're emphasizing the whole and helping them to understand also more than one whole, like I said, and not teaching it in isolation, and that we're doing multiple models, and really having the students verbalize their understanding of fractions. I'm going to show you a video now of a teacher introducing fractions, and I want you just to see what kind of multiple representations do you see, and how can she continue to grow their understanding of multiple representations. I'm not going to show you much of this video because I want to talk about, I want to make sure we have time to talk about math talk. I'll just give you a look into it quickly. So this was literally, she's just now introducing fractions in 4th grade.
Hearing really good conversation. Some people are seeing actual fractions in those pictures. Okay, that's awesome. Okay, I want you to open up your mind a little bit further. Okay, some of these pictures are representing something about fractions. Right? You may not see a fraction when you look at it, but I want you to think, I want you to dig, and see if you can think of why would she put a basketball up there? Why would she put that up there, and how would that ever have to do with fractions? I'm going to just give you a clue. It's not representing one whole basketball. Okay, so I want you to dig really deep. Talk to your group.
Basketball, the other half of the basketball. Somebody here said that.
But she said, think what it represents, not just chopping the basketball in half. Think about what you know about the game of basketball.
The court is split into 2. Yeah, the court is split.
Okay, so she's getting them to really think about, so for the basketball, of course, they were all saying we could chop the basketball in half. We could, there's the lines on the basketball. And so she was helping them to see that those lines don't make equal pieces, and a fraction has to be equal pieces. And then talking about 4 quarters in a game. The student said that the court was split into half. We talked about the 2 teams. So getting them to see, just because literally, like I said, this is their introduction lesson, that fractions look many different ways and are many different places. Would I show one way a day? In the beginning, yes, especially if I'm doing 3rd and 4th graders, I would look at like the linear ones. You could do several linear ones in one day, especially because the number line I would want to come back to many times. But I wouldn't mix like a linear type and a like the arrays model. I wouldn't mix the 2 of those because they're very different types. So you want to let them know, hey, we're going to look at fractions many different ways. And then if I've already introduced the linear type and I'm moving into the sets, I might say, okay, what would this number now look like, this fraction now look like on our number line? So you're making the connection back for them. And then you would also want to talk about, why aren't we using a number line right now with this type of fraction? So you're getting them to have different discussions around it. Okay. So here's something that she did now. On the right here, this is something that she has in their math notebooks as a resource for them to come back to when they're doing their work. And then here on the left is a sort that they did after working with fractions and really talking about the relationships between fractions, helping them to really see again, here it is on the ruler, here it is on a clock, here it is at a written number, here it is as money, all those kinds of things. Okay, if you have other questions about fractions, please put those into the today's meet. Again, I'll give you a place to, when I send you a Google form, to ask other questions that you're thinking as you continue thinking about fractions. But I want to switch quickly. I'm going to maybe go a couple minutes over 8 since we started a couple minutes late, but about math talks. Not too many minutes, I promise. I'm ready to go home also, so I know you guys are ready to be done with thinking for the night. But I think the real shift beyond just the what we're teaching is the how we're teaching it and how we're focusing on discussion. Like I said earlier, I think we tend, we're teachers. We like to talk. We hear ourselves talk all day long. We're used to doing a lot of the talking and the leading, and we have to step back and become listeners and be active listeners. We have to build a community in our classroom where students really do participate and share their thinking. And that has to start in an early age. So it's not going to happen overnight, especially as you get students coming to you and this is their first experience with it. You have to be really patient and really, really model and provide what they need to be able to do it successfully. And making sure our purpose is on the how and the what, and not on the how and the why and not on the what. But the thing I think is so important about math talk is it's like shared reading. It allows me, I have students of all different abilities in my classroom, but with a successful math talk, I'm able to lift the level of learning for all of my students. But everyone's able to be successful because we're having this common discussion around a topic. I've got here, and this is from the article that you guys read, 5 strategies to develop meaningful math talk. So one, we need to discuss with especially our oldest students why it's important. Help them to say, they might say, well, it helps me to know what others are thinking. It helps me to hear other ways to solve something. It stretches me to think different ways. But we have to really set the expectation and have them discuss why is it important. We have to really teach them how to be active listeners, and that has to be explicit. We have to model for them, teach them how to listen and how to actually respond, not just say something else. So I heard recently in a classroom, the teacher said, who can share their partner's thinking? So then they know they're going to be held accountable for actually listening and responding. And again, like I said, I think we don't realize how many times we actually answer for our students. So I would challenge you, if someone else is in your room, have them maybe just keep a tally of how maybe times you needed more wait time, or times you kind of implied the answer without realizing it, or answered for your students. I think sometimes we walk away just with misguided to what they actually can do on their own because we think we're listening, but we're not really listening. Introducing sentence stems, I think, is really important. I've given you some examples here of sentence stems that you can use. I like this one over here. This is from a Socratic seminar. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that, but really giving my students tools to have conversations. Some of them are going to be reluctant talkers, especially about math. And of course, you wouldn't introduce these all at one time. You would give them a few to choose from. And after I teach them, I wouldn't even make them mandatory, but it's given them a tool to use. But I want to make it a part of my everyday. They need to see me using them and working with them. And then I want to help my students understand the difference between explaining their thinking and justifying their thinking. If you're constantly having to remind them to, oh, well, now explain how you got your answer, then they're kind of missing the point. But we want to help them see the power in justifying. So when they say, I got this answer because, and I know it's right because, and then they would explain, they would justify how they had it, showing their way. And when we have students justify, it leads them to just talking about math, and helping them to, and someone else might say, well, I got that too, but I actually found it this way. And then that leads you to having a discussion around what was the most efficient way and why would one strategy be a better strategy over another. just like when we're doing a science experiment and we have them talk through their hypothesis and their process, we have to explicitly do it with them and for them. Oh yes, sentence stems are great in language arts. I think they're really, really great tools. I think, I don't know about your community, but in our community, we have a lot of parents that talk for their students. I was a child that my mom talked for me. I think I went to high school and college and realized, no one's going to talk for me right now. I have to do the talking. And so I know it doesn't seem like that now because I talk a lot, but we really have to give, especially our elementary age students, the tools they need to have good conversation. Yes, they are all around problem solving. Thank you, Vicki. I talked with the lower grades specifically about problem solving, but I think we haven't made that connection here, but that's so true. We're developing problem solvers, not, like we said before, not students who can follow steps. And that's why this math talk is so important. Thank you for pointing that out, Vicki. Okay. So as we close here, I just want to share with you 5 practices that improve the quality of conversation. So we want to focus our talk on questions and statements that engage students in conversation. So as a teacher, I want to revoice for them. So you're saying, and then repeat it for them. That then teaches our students to do that too. And I think it's really powerful when they say, so what you're saying is, 1, that shows me they're listening. 2, that shows me they can put it in their own words. Allowing them to agree and disagree and making sure that when I'm responding to that, I'm being very neutral in the way I respond and allowing them to discover it for themselves. Can you repeat that in your own words? What would someone else like to add to this? Letting them model it and explain and justify their answer. And wait time is really, really important. I know I've said that, but I can't say it enough. We answer too quickly. Our students become accustomed to that, and they know that if they just wait, we're going to just answer our own question. So we have to really change that thinking. Questioning is really, really important. I think there really is an art to questioning. I think this has to be an important part of our lesson planning, that we're really saying, what kind of questions am I going to ask to really push my students, especially in the area of problem solving, like Vicki said. I've added a slide here. I think these are so, so helpful. I would print these off and have them with me as I lesson plan, because these here are like, so if I really want them to invent more from what we're doing, then I might ask them something like, well, what would happen if, or sorry, there's a typo there. Do you see a pattern? Can you predict the next one? Or if I want them to reason, I would say, well, does that always work? Can you go try and find another way? Can you find a counterexample? How powerful, if a student can find an example of something that is not what they're doing, then they really do understand what they're doing. Really, questioning is so powerful, and we have to raise the level of our questioning. I know we all know about Marzano and things, but I think this is a kind of a different way of raising the level of our questioning to make sure we're really pushing their thinking. All right, a couple more and we'll wrap up here. Focus on using student thinking to propel your discussions. Really, really be an active listener. Can you hear their misconceptions? Because that's what you're going to teach into the next day. And I want to say here, when I say have your students talk, you have to be really strategic about that. You don't want to just willy-nilly have students sharing. We want to make sure that, when is it time for just teacher talk? And that's in that modeling portion, that I'm showing them really, really strong strategic examples before I let them go. And then as they're working with their buddies, I'm listening in to make sure that the person that I call on to share their thinking is going to share accurate thinking. When I shared the video of you at the 2nd grade classroom doing mental math, when I was with you guys, she was strategic in which 3 students she took pictures of their work and projected on the board to show multiple representations. So some days what you're being strategic and looking for is different, but the key is you're being strategic. We want to think about how we place students. Are we setting them up to be successful? That 3rd grade classroom, they were doing multiplication, and were doing their sevens. They're just learning their sevens, and they were playing the Sparkle game. So where you say, oh, we're going to count by sevens to up to our 12s today. And when, so when the next person gets Sparkle, then they're out. And so she knew what was new for them. So she had multiplication, the sevens up on the board. Each student had their own chart in their hand, and they had it in their journal. So making sure those resources are close by and with students so they can actually use them. And then finally, thinking about how am I developing a culture of a supportive environment and a culture of math talk. So what is the teacher role? Is that I'm really anticipating student responses and where they're going to be challenged. And that's why, when confusion develops, it means it's really on me that I have missed on what my students really know and don't know, or I've moved too quickly based on what I think they know. And that's the importance of being an active listener. Really monitoring their work and their engagement in their task, really, doing those exit tickets, understanding what they know and what they don't know, and selecting which students actually represent, like I said, their mathematical work, and being very strategic about that. I'm sequencing their responses in a specific way so that I'm not building confusion, but I'm supporting their understanding of, oh, well, maybe this way worked for you, or maybe this way worked for you. And I'm helping them to really connect what they're doing to other things to really be able to be equipped to make the best strategic decision on their own. Okay. I'm going to stop there. I've kept you a couple of minutes over. I will send you a Google form to get your feedback and questions before developing the next webinar. But I would like for you to work with a teammate to just talk about how would you add multiple representations to a current lesson. Doesn't mean you actually change anything you're doing. Again, we don't want to overwhelm or frighten people away. I know Helen's talked to you guys about that a lot, but before we have a lot of time for parent education, but just talk about how you would do that, what's other ways you could do that, and also reflect on one of your current lessons. How are you questioning students? Like I said, maybe have a peer just tally, how many times do I answer my own question? I think, again, it's really powerful to kind of, maybe you just film yourself with your iPad one lesson and watch it on your own. It doesn't mean you have to show it to somebody else, but I think it shows a level of, I'm really being reflective of my teaching, and really, especially my questioning, because that questioning in your math talk is really, really important. Okay, I'll stay on the Today's Meet for a few more minutes if you have any follow-up questions. I'm going to unshare, and again, I'll share this with you, and I hope you guys have a great evening. Thanks for joining me.